I'm ashamed to say I don't watch the news as much as I should, but I find it depressing. I like to watch Price is Right, or Let's Make a Deal, Dancing with the Stars, and now Talent. No, I live in an electric world, but things have really changed. I said my first wash machine, oh my goodness, that was wonderful. I don't know who invented that, but that was a thrill. And Alexander Bell, I used to pray for him because so happy to get a telephone. Gosh, the sewing machines that do everything now, and the telephones, like I said, now they just do everything. I'm amazed. They take pictures, and you can call and ask questions. Oh my goodness, they're so fortunate. Mary Lee Sherman Flores, right before my 100th birthday. I have a few more days to go. I've had a good journey. I was born at home, I guess. I don't know why I was there, but I wasn't. It was September the 19th, 1914. Name is Mary Neola Thomir. When I was in first grade, a boy came up and he said, my mom said, you don't know how to spell your name. He said it should be with an L. So I had to keep my own name, but they called me Lee. We lived in Oklahoma City then until I guess I was 8 or 10. My dad had a Model T Ford the first few years. And he worked for a laundry company. And then at night, he drove it was a horse and buggy that he went to a place like the Highlands in Oklahoma City, a park, and sold ice cream. My mother, and she wanted to move back to St. Genevieve, where her parents were. So we moved back there for 2 years. I went to school there. During that time, my grandfather died. Dad could not find work in St. Genevieve, and so he went to St. Louis to get a job. Mom wasn't satisfied with that. She wanted to be with him, and so again we sold everything and went to St. Louis. I went to 5th and 6th at St. Teresa's. Then we moved again, and I went to St. Augustine's, 7th and 8th. I graduated in 8th grade. We didn't get toys like now. When I go to somebody's house at Christmas, it looks like Macy's. I have the dolls then, used to be. My dad brought one from the barber shop that was just an advertisement that was, I said my first doll was John. Johnny, I used to call him when I have a tea party with Johnny. Had a knob that made its arms and legs move. And nothing like the beautiful baby dolls they have today. But the girls today, I don't think play with dolls. They paint their nails and get pedicures. Want to push their thumb for game toys. We sat out on the front steps after you eat your supper, and you watched the cars go by. And the boys made a tea stick, and they would push the ball. And the girls played jacks, ball and jacks. Or we played hide and seek, the boys and girls together. We used to dress up. And I used to have a picture of a neighbor girl being the bride and me being the groom and holding a baby. My baby brother. Never had roller skates, never had ice skates, never had a bicycle. When I went to the park one time to rent a bicycle, I got on, I was able to balance myself, but we went across the street to Forest Park, and the first thing I did was run into it by a tree. No, I took sewing in my first year of high school. I took sewing. And the first Christmas, I got a sewing machine. I went to Central High School, was closer. I went to Central 1 year. Well, we still didn't have much money, and my dad went up on Grand Avenue, and they were building this Woolworths store. He must have went back a couple times and finally met the manager who gave me an interview. I told him I was 16, or he told him I was 16. So. And I gave my mother 6 out of 9 that I made. If there's work to be done, and it ain't going to get done unless I do it. And I wasn't afraid to try. I'd always think, well, nobody told me I couldn't do it. It took a lot of work and determination to get where I am. After about 6 years at Woolworths, there was an ad in the paper for Burroughs Machine Company. And if you paid for tuition there and learned one of their machines, they would guarantee you a job. So it was, I think, a 3-month course. I can't remember. But then it was about a couple of months till I really got a job, and then I went to work for Jason Sanborn Coffee. They sold coffee and Jell-O and Fleischmann's yeast. And I worked on a bookkeeping machine there for 2 years when I met my husband. Joe used his dad's car to bring Fred over to my house, because it was Fred's birthday and I was going to be his date, but I said I had to meet him first. I met Fred and I went with him for about 1.5 years, and then he was a little bit younger than me. And he was embarrassed about that. Well, we had other problems besides that. But anyway, then Joe remembered where I was, and he looked me up. He was going to get me a watch for Christmas, and I said I didn't think I cared that much about him. I wasn't that serious, so we broke up for 1 year. We went to Oklahoma City, and right before we left, I went out to the Biltmore Country Club with another young man. And all these 6 guys were there, but Joe was not. So when I was on this trip with my mom, I sent a postcard to him and said, met your friends last night. They all came up to the table. And he said, I said, I missed you, though. I was wondering, are you married or not? If you're not, look me up. He did. And we got together, and that time we stayed together. To get to my house, Joe had to transfer twice. And their midnight car was 12 o'clock or 11:45, and half the time he missed it, so he had to walk. He was always heavy. When we got married, I weighed 100 and he weighed 208. So he was Fat Boy instead of calling him by his name. Sugar Joe used to call me. We had no car, no radio, no TV, of course, at that time. In fact, we were married a number of years before we went to Grandma and Grandpa's to watch television watch Ed Sullivan. We'd go to the Biltmore, and Joe would fix their watches in return for getting into the place. And we would dance all night and have a chicken dinner. At 12 o'clock, the boss would come in. He'd say, all right, it's 12 o'clock now. It's time for everybody to go home. Go to church tomorrow. I became pregnant. I went and told the doctor I was pregnant. And he asked me where my husband worked, and I told him. And that he was working for his uncle in a jewelry store. And he said, how much does he make a month? And I said, well, he makes $25 a week. He said, do you think you could spend $100 on your first baby? That included Deloge Hospital, 10 days, took care of Mom and baby. You didn't get out of bed till the 9th day. You could sit on the edge of the bed and wiggle your feet. 10 days you went home. And Jackie, Betty, Carol, John, Mary, Margie, Joe. They were all heartaches. Well, Betty was easy. My children never wore a pamper, or they never had any baby food in jars. I would make little sacks, little gowns for them that tied at the bottom to keep their feet warm. You made the diapers too. You just bought a bunch of flannelette and made, I don't know how many I made. Millions. Each one was a joy, really and truly. Uncle Lou was going to sell the jewelry store and just do optical work, and he gave Joe a chance to get it. And so then he had the store a couple of years. I don't think it was maybe it was a little over a year, and we went looking for a house because there was Joe and me and 7 kids. And then Joe had a very good friend. We found this place on Mylands, and the lady said, we have 5 bedrooms and a living room, dining room. I said, we'll take it at the door, you know. Well, it wound up, we did take that house. John was the 5th child, and he was just about a year and a half, and he was walking around. Well, the television sat on a Victrola, and he pulled the thing over on him, and the glass just sliced a piece about the size of $1 off of the back of his head, and of course it was bleeding. It was scaring me to death. I don't know what happened to the children. The rest were there. I took Johnny, and I'm running out in the street screaming, help me, and I was thinking somebody would stop, but my neighbor next door, he happened to be coming from work, and he took me to Children's Hospital, and it was a surface cut. It wasn't bad. Oh, my first phone was after John had fell, and it was limited to 40 calls a month, and it was a 2-party line. If the other party was used, and you just had to wait. Well, we lived next door to a Greek family, and they had 2 boys that were still at home, grown boys, and the one just would tease Jackie all the time. And so he's out there, and he tells Jackie she's on her tricycle. And I don't know how old she was, 5, 6 years old, I guess. He said, I bet you can't ride your bicycle down the steps. So she did it. Got a few scrapes, but nothing broken. None of my children were at the hospital until Joe was in 8th grade, and he fell and broke his wrist. So God has been with us. And John, one time he went on his prom night, he went with somebody to Chicago after that, didn't come home. I didn't know where he was. But I don't know either now why I didn't report it or something. But I didn't. I just knew he was going to come home. I never would have thought of that. He went to work. He was working at the packing company, and he went to work. Well, that's where we finally found him. Every time one of my daughters went out, I had a little black book, and then I would make the boy tell me his name and his address, or if he had a telephone, so I would know what happened to my daughters. And, well, they all, put up a little fuss about it, but they did it anyway. I told them then that there was a curfew. They had to be in by 12 o'clock, or we'd lock the doors, and I think they believed me. The biggest test was when 2 of them wanted to get married in the same year. That was the riot. Carol had been in the convent, and then I don't think they'd been out and been together any time. It didn't seem like it was less than a year. And they announced they're going to get married in January. And then Mary came home, and I think she had been up in the airplane with Larry and came home, and she was all excited, and she had her ring, and she was going to get married too. So I wasn't a bit happy. We had words and words and words. Well, because I told them I could only afford to give each one of them. It was either $200 or $300, I don't know. I said, that's all it took to get me married. And if you want more, you got to do it. I mean, every one of their weddings was exciting and thrilling, and their graduation from high school was, for me, wonderful. And again, with the prom dresses, some we borrowed and some I adjusted and fixed, and that was a thrill of my life to see those girls all dressed and enjoying it, because I never experienced that. Told Joe, I said, I'm going to go to Famous and take some drive. Oh, no, you're not, he said. I'll teach you to drive. And so he took me out one night, and we went down on Vanderbilt Avenue, and he said, I pulled over the curb. He said, okay, now get in the car. So I got in on the driver's side, and he said, all right, now go. Well, I was planning on going to Famous, so I had read the book and got in the car, but I was scared to death. I'd never handled a car, you know. Well, we went a little ways, and he'd give me hints here and there, but I said, let's go back home. I was ready to go. I didn't go very far. And then we got out of the car. Of course, I got out and slammed the door, and he got out and he slammed the door. And then there was fuzz flying. I didn't really, he would tell me, you take the car now, you know what to do, and you just drive the thing, you know. Well, I was afraid to go by myself. I didn't go very much. But when he had the heart attack, we just sick, and I had to drive then. And I said, God was with me. I learned. When Joe died and left the jewelry store there, I had only been in it a dozen times because I was home with the children. He bought the store from Uncle Lou. I didn't put my name on it. So the court was there right away after he died. And they said the first time, we had bought a lot of Christmas stuff. He died on December the 4th. We had Christmas merchandise, and they said, well, we won't be able to get anybody out here to sell it till April. I said, April? Who wants Christmas stuff in April? I said, we'll lose what little bit we got. So he said, can you do it? If you can do it. I said, sure, I'll try. Joanne took out, she was in nursing school. John was in the Navy. She got 3 months, or she got some time out of school. She was in nursing school. And the two of us went down there every day, and we got signs ordered that going out of business and prices cut and all this. And we did sell out most everything by Christmas. We were just fortunate that Evo's opened a place around the corner from us, and it was an easy treat to get pizza. And I don't know, we think we had Kool-Aid. I never had, the refrigerator was never stocked with soda. We had Kool-Aid, and everybody seemed to enjoy it. And the player piano we had was a really big amusement to kids, to play the piano with your feet. I was always happy to have the children. My husband always said, I never worked a day in my life. When somebody would say something about, where did you find this girl? He'd say, well, she never worked a day in her life. When people talk about being the professionals and having all these letters behind their name. I won't have any letters behind my name, but I'm very proud that I was able to be home for my children. That whenever they came home, if they didn't see Mom, they were yelling, "Mom, Mom, where are you?" I was always there for them, which I think none of my children have been in jail. And they've all had Christian marriages, and they have done well so far. We have fun. We don't have money. Mary Lee Sherman Flores. Right before my 100th birthday. I have a few more days to go. And I love everybody. I'm like, I've had a good journey.